So the government will today attempt to persuade us, I think, is it the fifth or maybe the sixth time, the importance of the high-speed rail link, HS2. Transport Secretary Patrick McLaughlin will say that it needs broad political consensus or it will end in nothing. He'll accuse Labour of playing politics with our prosperity over the project. The government will also publish a report justifying the 42.6, I'm so sorry, I think I said 46.2, my apologies, 42.6, although it has shot up an additional, £12 billion, cost of the project. It's the latest attempt to satisfy critics who are asking the benefits of HS2. Jim Steer is director of Greengauge 21. It's an independent organisation. It's been researching the idea of high-speed rail links, joins me now. And from your research, you discover what, Mr. Steer? Good morning.
Oh, good morning. Well, we discover that the network that we have today is going to be full by the 2020s. So there's a big capacity problem that we've known has been looming for some time. If you're going to provide a solution to that, why not do it in a contemporary way with high-speed rail? And that gives benefits for commuters as well as long-distance passengers and for freight. And, of course, high-speed will make the country better connected, and that's good news for regional economies.
And assuming your research is correct, and I'm sure you've put in your best endeavours, why on earth didn't the government sell this to us on those grounds in the first place? Because initially I was told it will get me to Birmingham 35 minutes quicker so I can have an extra cup of tea.
Well, I think it still is 35 minutes quicker, but we've had pretty strong opposition, as everybody knows, and they've contended that this is just about saving 10 minutes or so off the journey time. Actually, if you look back at all of the documents, and trust me, I have, government's always said this is about capacity and also, of course, improving journey time. So I think sometimes people get a bit carried away with the idea of high speed and think it's all jolly clever and so on. But of course, it's a straightforward thing. We've had Eurostar successfully running for 15 or so years. We know what it's about. Fundamentally, this is a capacity problem.
Are you surprised by the level of opposition?
Well, no, not really. I mean, let's face it. This is a very, very big decision for the country. It's important, in my view, that it gets debated properly and fairly. We've had committee after committee through the summer raising questions, and I think today is the chance for the Secretary of State for Transport to answer those questions, and I'm very confident he will. And I think the important thing is that people take the time now to look at the evidence and form a view afresh, as it were, rather than just listen to the banter that's been going on.
Hold on the line, if you would, while I bring Thomas Crane, who's the director of HS2 Action Alliance, into the conversation. Mr. Crane, it's not about speed, it's not about allowing men and women to work on their laptops on the computer, it's a more important, crucial aspect of capacity.
Morning. It's not about capacity. The existing lines can be upgraded to deal with even the most aggressive forecasts of capacity growth. And what your previous guest isn't telling you, he is a majority shareholder in Steer Davis Gleave, which is one of the largest transport consultants in the country,
Mr.
which is going to make a huge amount of money if this project goes ahead.
Do you have a vested interest, Mr. Steer?
Well, I very much doubt that we will make any money out of HS2 going ahead.
But are you part of the organisation?
Oh, yes, I founded Steer Davis Gleave. And
you're a majority shareholder, and you will make millions if this project goes ahead. So I cannot believe you'll come on this programme and pretend that you're independent and you've done some kind of research with an independent hat on. The fact of the matter is the independent organisations that look at this, like the National Audit Office, like the Treasury Select Committee, like the Public Accounts Committee, all come up with major issues and concerns, and we just cannot write those off. And rather than the rail industry ignoring that, what your guest should be saying is admitting there are significant problems with this design and there needs to be a radical rethink.
I agree that with you on one point, which is that the committees have raised some important questions that need answers. And I think the thing that people need to be doing today is to look at the evidence. You say, for instance, that of course there's a cheap and easy option, which is just to upgrade what we've got. Well, I'm confident that the work that the department will have been doing over the last 12 months will have looked at that option again.
Yeah, but Jim, you've got a huge vested interest in this project going ahead. I mean, if I owned the country's largest transport consultancy and I had a 70% shareholding in it, I'd be on the radio saying it was a great idea because I'd be making millions out of it. But I don't, so I'm not. Rather than having people like yourself, which are going to make a huge amount of money out of it, we need to look at people that have got no vested interest in it. And you've got a huge vested interest. And rather than coming on saying you're independent, you should have told Nick Ferrari the realistic thing is that you have a huge interest in this.
Well, I'm sorry, your facts are wrong. Steer Davis Cleave is an employee-owned company. I am not the majority shareholder. I did found it. I make no secret of the fact that I'm a director, a non-executive director.
How many contracts has your company got with HS2 Limited and the Department for Transport?
Well, I think the interesting...
How much have you bid for? Come on, if you're going to make a go for this, let's tell the listeners, how much money are you going to make out of HS2?
I personally have been working for no pay for Greengauge 21 for the last couple of years, and I set it up because I thought there should be a public debate on this. So
no, you set it up because...
it's a very interesting and amusing thing for you to raise, but the important thing, and I'm sure listeners will want to know, is what's the substance of the argument here? How are the costs going to be managed? Has the department updated its analysis to take account of the fact that, yes, as people like yourself have been saying, of course you can work on trains. Has that been taken into account in the updated analysis? And have they properly looked at the alternatives and come to a reasoned conclusion as to why they won't work, which I don't believe they will, and HS2 is the right answer?
And if we come back to the capacity point, Mr. Crane is saying that there is room, actually. It could be upgraded, it could be refreshed, and we would address the capacity problems, Mr. Steer.
Well, there's a limited amount that certainly can be done. You can lengthen all of the trains to the maximum amount. You could try to fit some more trains on these key routes, and we're talking about the main lines northwards out of London, especially in the first instance, the West Coast main line. The difficulty in doing that is the network is already very congested. So the rail regulator earlier this year turned down a track application from Virgin Trains, as it happens, to try to run an extra service. So why did he do that? Because if you try to fit yet more trains on a very busy network, the services will become even less reliable, and they're not very good at the moment.
Just lastly, Mr. Steer, and I'm not saying you're not, if you are right, why is it taking the government so much time and effort to persuade everyone to the benefits?
Trains further to get some more seats, but that won't last us very long.
All right, thank you. Last point to Thomas Crane. Mr. Crane, where do you live?
I live near the line. My community is going to be decimated, and I think, Nick, like you've campaigned for hospitals and policing where you live, I'm entitled to look at whether the cost-benefit for my area being totally trashed is up for it or not.
And if it was, for the purpose of debate, if it was going through Kent or Suffolk, do you think you would be that motivated?
I think I would say I think our environment is worth protecting, and I think 44 ancient woodlands, which have been continuously wooded since the Doomsday Book, are worth protecting. So I care about the environment, and at the end of the day, if there was a better solution, and there is, and what you just heard is not true. The consultants working for HS2 Limited produced a report that showed that just 3 changes to the West Coast main line and lengthening trains could cope with the most aggressive forecast of future demand.